Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs, the podcast for burned out, career-minded moms who are ready to stop pretending everything's fine and feel like themselves again. I'm your host, Christy Gamir, burnout coach for moms, licensed therapist, and mom of two. And I'm here to help you reclaim your energy, your identity, and your peace of mind. Whether you're lying awake thinking about the 87 things you didn't get done, or silently resenting the people you love most, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and not so alone. So grab your coffee, hot, cold, or day old, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Christy. Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Madisen Rose. Madisen is a somatic practitioner and the founder of Better Half to Whole, a platform dedicated to supporting individuals through the renegotiation of relational trauma in the nervous system, specializing in divorce recovery. Through one-on-one sessions, digital resources, group programs, and self-paced online courses, Madisen helps people heal their sense of self while rebuilding with intention, compassion, grit, and self-trust. She specializes in helping clients gently renegotiate relational trauma through embodied trauma-trained practices. Her deep belief in the power of human connection and creative expression continues to shape her work today. Madisen is passionate about building community, supporting women, children, and families, and bridging the space between science and the sacred. So I've invited Madisen here today to talk about and share her expertise with somatic work and nervous system regulation and the importance of those things for helping working moms to prevent or overcome burnout. So, Madisen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Me too. Can you maybe just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this work?
Yeah, I came to somatic work after really attempting almost all of the other healing modalities I could find. And they all helped, but it really wasn't until I dedicated myself to receiving somatic work that I feel like it really softened the edges of the grief that I had around my divorce, which is why I even got started in the divorce recovery space. But the somatic work for me has been foundational in how I really experience the world and how I can be present in my own body. And it also changed all of my relationships. And so that's how I really came to somatic work, was after having tried a lot of other things like talk therapy and acupuncture and energy work, and pretty much you name it, I have tried it.
And it sounds like you found the most success with somatic work. It sounds like that was the most helpful for you.
Yeah, really the most all of the other things are kind of happening up here. But the somatic work is so internal and so foundational and affects everything else.
Yeah, well, and I'm wondering if you can just maybe talk a little bit about how somatic work and nervous system regulation, how do those set the foundation for stress management and burnout recovery?
So somatic work and nervous system regulation, I think, really are a little bit buzzy right now. They're terms that are used a lot. And people, think I just have to regulate. I just have to regulate. And if you don't have enough resource, if you're not rested, if you are working all the time, you're constantly living in a fight or flight state or some kind of survival pattern. People say they're worn out or worn thin, and you just don't have the same margin to navigate when things happen in your life. And so having what is called capacity in the nervous system is really a comfort level and a familiarity with activation or stress or things that are happening, but then also being able to stay in more of a rest and digest space where you feel calm. And for a lot of people, that is unfamiliar, especially if you're a working parent, because you have a lot of things that are requiring your attention. And I think especially for moms that ourselves. I'm not a mom, but I am around a lot of kids. I'm an
Mhm.
auntie and, I'm a godmom, but I think it is really natural for us to put ourselves last when
Mhm.
really we should be feeding ourselves first so that we can support everyone else because you're gonna be taxed and tapped all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and so many moms, they feel like they are constantly in this survival mode, right? Like they're always just go, 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 go all the time, just trying to stay on top of everything, juggle all the things. So I'm wondering if you can just, explain in simple terms, what is actually happening in our nervous system, when we are stuck in that, go, go, go state.
So if you're stuck in a go, go, go state, you're always responding. There's probably adrenaline going
Mhm.
through your body. And if you're always in that constant go, go, go state, um, there's just not a lot of buffer
Mhm.
for you to slow down. And even when there is like an opportunity to slow down, it's not very familiar. And so people can automatically go back to like constantly moving their hands or then they just crash.
Mhm.
And so if you're constantly in that go, go, go state, you're probably in a lot of flight,
Mhm.
potentially. And everybody's different,
Mhm.
but you're always moving and um, the body can't sustain that.
Mhm.
So what's happening in the body is really that you're like activated everywhere. You're like
Mhm.
muscles are moving, your heart rate is probably elevated, and you're hyper aware, probably like always on, and you will get exhausted because we're not meant to stay in one survival state all the time. It's just not
Mhm.
sustainable for your body.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And and one of the things that I know a lot of people struggle with, a lot of moms, one of the things that they have a hard time with once they when they are burned out is that not only is it affecting them, but it ends up spilling over into their relationships. So I to people a lot about, how it's affecting their relationships with their spouse, how it's affecting their relationship with their kids, the people that are most important to them, who they are with all the time. And so I'm wondering if you can maybe explain a little bit about how our nervous system, how it does impact the way that we show up in our relationships, again, like when we are burned out.
So when you are burned out, and it's kind of like the difference between sitting on the beach
Mhm.
and getting caught up in a wave. And so if you are in like a regulated state, you're sitting on the beach, you're away from the water, you're able to observe, you're able to respond and be present, which is the same thing in your relationships. You've got a little
Right.
bit of space, you can breathe, you can look around and see, you can be present.
Mhm.
When you are in like a constant state or you're burned out, it's like being rolled by a wave. And
Mhm.
all you are trying to do is just get to the surface to breathe. And it's really hard to be in that connected, like present, exchanging space with someone when all you're trying to do is figure out how to breathe.
Mhm.
And so the relationship side, like if you don't have much to give, you just don't have much to give because you've been
Mhm.
giving all of it and not really refilling or restoring or resourcing is what they say
Mhm.
yourself. And so if you can start there as a mom I mean, they say this all the time, like fill your cup first
Yeah.
kind of idea.
Mhm.
But if you just keep putting in like a little teaspoon and someone's trying to take out a full cup, you're gonna
Mhm.
be tapped out all the time. So it
Mhm.
affects relationships and your ability to be present and
Mhm.
connect because you're in a rested state or in a calm state. Whereas if you are not, you might be distracted. You might say something that you wish you would have said differently. You might
Mhm.
respond from that stressed state, which affects everyone around you.
Mhm.
And not that you and this is like in an ideal world, right? You're
Mhm.
gonna be able
Yeah.
to take care of yourself first. But even in like little interactions, if you're able to have a little distance, you can breathe, you're present instead of just reacting, you'll be able to respond in relationship a little
Yeah,
bit
and
differently.
I really like the visual that you just shared with, like, being on the beach versus, like, being caught up in a wave. I mean, I'm sort of, like, imagining that as I'm listening to you talk, and I feel like that really creates a great, like, picture for people to really, understand and think about this. So I appreciate that. So for the mom, a mom who is struggling, what are some signs that maybe her nervous system is dysregulated? Like, what would be some things that she would look for? How would she be able to tell?
Some of the like first things you can pay attention to is your heart rate,
Mhm.
your breath, like the depth of your breath. Um, are you experiencing like racing thoughts? Like, are you able to just stop and be in the moment, or are you constantly thinking about everything else that's happening in the day? Like running through your to do list constantly, kind of those racing thoughts.
Mhm.
Um, and then also, what if you can pay attention to what your like sensory inputs are. I think we do kind of dissociate a little bit when you're just in that go, go, go mode. So if you
Mhm.
can notice like the texture of the shirt that you're wearing, or if you're driving, you notice the texture of the steering wheel. If you are
Mhm.
only in your mind and not in the body at all,
Mhm.
that can be a sign that you are in somewhat of a survival mode because you are up here and thinking instead of being present in the
Mhm.
body.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Well, and so then one of the things that I know, you've talked about before is this idea of building familiarity with joy, peace, rest, and support. So, why would you say, like, I'm curious to hear more about that. Like, why is that just as important as actually like learning to calm ourselves down?
So the regulation, like calming ourselves down is really important because things are coming at you all the
Mhm.
time. And
Mhm.
so being able to return to that rested place is important, that regulated place. But if you think about like, have you ever seen scales? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
there's one side, has all your to-do list and your stressors and like everything that's happening in your life is going to be out of balance. If you do establish or even begin to orient and think about the things that are giving you joy or peace or happiness, it's going to tip those scales a lot more easily than if you are constantly trying to unload all of the
Mhm.
stress. And
Mhm.
so that's really where the capacity of the nervous system comes in, is that you are able to recognize both and
Mhm.
really come back to a regulated state quicker, because
Mhm.
it is like the joy, the peace. Maybe it's 2% peace in your day, and
Mhm.
maybe the next day it's 5. And so building that, really, it's the neuroscience of it, building that pathway in your brain that you can have the ability to recognize both,
Mhm.
because the things that are stressful or demanding your time and attention are ever present, that we have to intentionally bring in other pieces of joy and rest, because they are not going to push themselves in the same
Mhm.
way as
Mhm.
someone who's asking for a snack. Like joy doesn't make its way in quite in the same way when you're being asked to respond.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about as I'm listening to you talk is you were talking about before, this idea of a person's cup being full. And yes, you hear people talk about that a lot. A lot of times I'll sort of talk to people about this idea of, a plate, right? Same idea, your plate is full. And one of the things that I often sort of think about is this idea of you've got the size of your plate and then you've got like how full it actually is, right? And so if you are struggling, you're essentially wanting to do both. You're wanting to think about how you can make it bigger and also how you can take things off of it. And it sounds like that's sort of what you're describing when you talk about not just focusing on unloading, but also how to bring attention to these other things that bring joy and peace and whatnot, just to sort of take care of yourself in that way.
Yeah, exactly. As you were talking about that, it made me think of like a little dollhouse plate and then
Mhm.
like a big dinner plate.
Mhm.
Both plates, but one can hold a lot more food. And then I visualize this like little tiny plate just with like a Thanksgiving meal. It's just like all stuff on there.
Well, it's sort of this idea that like we all have different limits, right? Like we all have our limits, but they might look different in terms of like where they are. And so that's sort of what I mean when I think about like the size of a plate is how much we can actually handle. But then regardless of how big your plate is, like everybody can get to a point where it's full. Everybody can get to a point where it's like sort of spilling over the edge. So wanting to be mindful of that too. So it sounds like there are like other ways to sort of, think about and talk about these same ideas, but it sounds like that's really what you're referring to when you talk about those things. So when a mom is, say, experiencing burnout, when she is, dysregulated, when our nervous system is dysregulated, what are, a lot of times there are strategies that people talk about a lot. You hear people talk a lot about like things like breathing strategies and things like that, which I know are they're great, right? They can be really helpful. But I also know that you've talked about other things that can, other ways that people can regulate their nervous system beyond those kind of quick fixes. So I'm curious I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that in terms of, what are some practical somatic techniques that busy moms can use for that purpose to regulate their nervous system?
Yeah, regulation is really important. And then in the work that I do that is more specific to the renegotiation of trauma is more long term.
Mhm.
And so in the moment, what we can do, awareness is really the first step.
Mhm.
So if you can slow down enough to be in the present moment, even if it's for 30 seconds, that's going to help give your nervous system a little bit of a break.
Mhm.
Um, Especially if someone is burnt out and you are constantly going. Um, but some of the like tried and true practices you can do in the moment is, can you feel your feet on the floor?
Mhm.
Can you feel the texture of the socks on your feet?
Mhm.
Like bringing it down to the sensory input, really.
Mhm.
Can you feel like right now, I'm like, can I feel the hair on the back of my neck? And just paying attention to a really, really small thing that's going
Mhm.
to bring you back into the body.
Mhm.
There's also a practice, it's considered an orienting practice or a grounding practice, but you use your eyes and you pick something that is near you and you trace the shape of it. And
Mhm.
then you see if you can slow the tracing down to about half
Mhm.
speed.
Mhm.
And that will signal to your body that you are safe because you're able to really zoom in on the details of that thing.
Mhm.
And so even if it is 10 seconds of noticing your popcorn ceiling
Mhm.
or the like texture of a paper towel or whatever it is, but just shifting your focus a little bit to notice some more detail. And that is going to bring you back into the body in a different way instead of being only in the head or only in go mode.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And actually, as you were listening to you talk, even before, you had said that about, a grounding, that's actually one of the things I was thinking about. It's like, it sounds like you're describing different kinds of grounding exercises, right? Which, as you know, there are a lot of different ones, right? Like a lot of different kinds. Like there's the physical grounding, the mental grounding, the soothing grounding. And it sounds like you're talking about, again, sort of different ways of shifting your focus and your awareness away from what's going on mentally to what's going on with the body through these different kinds of exercises. So, yes, deep breathing can be really helpful, but these grounding exercises can be helpful in these other ways.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's the grounding practices or orienting or things like that. Your body will naturally de escalate.
Mhm.
Whereas, not to say that it won't naturally de escalate if you're focused on your breathing,
Mhm.
but it's almost as if you're giving your attention to something else to signal to the body instead of trying to force the body to slow
Mhm.
down or to regulate. And
Mhm.
so that's what you're using, like, another part of the brain, and the
Mhm.
body's like, "Oh, I can relax a little bit
Mhm.
here. I can release the tension in my neck by 2%. Like, I can oh, I'm okay." It's like a reminder to the body, "I'm okay. I'm okay."
Mhm. Well, one of the things that I love about grounding exercises, I think that there are a lot of things that people can do to help, with stress management and whatnot, where you're going to really want to be in a quiet space, separate from everything else that's going on, the hustle and bustle of life. And one of the things that I love about grounding exercises is that, well, for starters, there are so many different ones that you can do. But secondly, that you really can. You can do them like kind of anywhere, right? You could do them, if you are at home within a quiet space or, if you are, out in the world somewhere. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are about that. If you feel like there are certain certain environments that you feel are more ideal for something like that, or if it's really is just something that you can kind of do anywhere.
I think it depends on how familiar someone is with grounding,
Yeah.
because if it is brand new to you, you might be able to do it for 15 seconds,
Mhm.
and then it feels like, "Oh, nope, gotta go back in action." And
Mhm.
so if someone is and then in the same vein, if someone I told them, like, "You need to meditate for an hour," like,
Mhm.
it's just not necessarily gonna happen, and that might be too much, for your system to handle. And
Mhm.
so I think it's really important to remind people to start where you are
Mhm.
and see what feels good, and if you can handle a little more, spend a little more time. If
Mhm.
all you have is, like, 10 seconds waiting for your coffee to be finished
Mhm.
in the microwave, use those 10 seconds to notice something.
And so
Um,
sometimes that's all we have, right? Sometimes
Sometimes
all
that's
we
it.
have is like the 10 seconds, which is okay, right? And I think that I'm really glad that you said that and you brought up that point because I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, a lot of working moms struggle with is this idea that we really don't have a lot of time. And there can be this idea of like, okay, I know that these are things that can be helpful, but when am I ever going to do them? And so that can be a major barrier. And then they don't necessarily try or start, but just this reminder that it doesn't have to be this huge chunk of time. It can literally be 10 seconds. It can literally be just a couple minutes, really wherever you can carve out any time in your day.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to share with you too is something I learned from my mentor, which is called a somatic check-in. And these are things that you can connect
Mhm.
with something you're already doing. And just as someone's like beginning to think about somatics or what's
Mhm.
happening in the body or nervous system regulation,
Mhm.
if you have like start with 3 times a day, and maybe it is when you pee, like whenever you're going to the bathroom, or something that you are already doing, and just noticing, what am I feeling in my body right now? What am I doing?
Mhm.
And then it's from there noticing what's happening in the body and when that you really can start to shift
Mhm.
over time. But the
Mhm.
awareness is the first piece, and we're especially moms that are burned out or burning out, there is not a lot of time
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
spend taking care of ourselves, and they're constantly thinking about everyone else and everything else. And
Mhm.
so just those really short times, if it's like morning, noon, and night, maybe it's when you brush your teeth or whatever it is, like something you're doing regularly to connect it with that. So it doesn't feel like one extra thing that you're doing, that
Mhm.
it's connected to something that's already in your routine. And
Mhm.
just to notice, how am I feeling right now? And maybe you can do that for a very short period of time. And as you do it more often, you'll
Mhm.
notice more and more and more in the body,
Mhm.
that doesn't feel overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like with practice, it becomes more natural, right? It becomes a little bit easier, it sounds like. So, and you're talking a lot, you're talking about sort of tying it into these things that you're already doing. It's already part of your day, it's already part of your routine. What about, with some of these times where maybe it's not part of a routine? Like, for example, for moms who are maybe feeling triggered by their spouse or kids, something that's maybe going on with them. What are some ways that they can start creating safety for themselves, safety and calm, like in those moments?
So there is a practice that you can do if someone is really looking to build safety.
Mhm.
Maybe it doesn't feel present in those relationships.
Mhm.
So really thinking about, where do I feel safe in any relationship at any time in your life? And noticing, if you think about that, who that person is, where do you notice it in your body? And
Mhm.
starting to develop a relationship with what safety in general feels like in the body. And
Mhm.
then over time, incorporating that into your relationship with your significant other, into your relationship with your kids. Maybe you feel uh, um, really safe when you're feeding your kids, or
Mhm.
maybe you feel really safe during bath time, or
Mhm.
whatever it is. Because I think we have this, especially for high performers, especially for achieving
Mhm.
people. It's
Mhm.
like it's all or nothing. And
Mhm.
if I can't do it full on, I'm not going to do it at all.
Mhm.
And wanting to feel safe and connected in all relationships. So
Mhm.
really beginning just to develop a relationship with what safety feels like in the body in general, and then seeing if you can find instances of that in your other close relationships. And that
Mhm.
will, again, with practice, it will grow over time. Um, and the feelings of safety are quieter than
Mhm.
those feelings of stress.
Mhm. Okay. So and that makes a lot of sense. And and a lot of the things, so this along with some of the other things you've been talking about today, you really talked a lot about, practicing, like developing these skills over time. It sounds like they become more effective, with that practice. What about, for a mom who's maybe listening right now who really, resonates with this conversation, who's really interested in trying this? Um, and she hasn't had that time to really like develop those skills yet. What's maybe one small step that she could take today just to sort of help her begin to feel a little bit more grounded?
Yeah, I would say try the somatic check ins.
Okay.
The noticing, even though it sounds really small,
Mhm.
it can be really profound.
Mhm.
Because maybe if someone is really stressed at a certain point in their day that they didn't realize they were stressed, or they thought they were always stressed, and
Mhm.
having that awareness to be able to to shift one thing, or to release one thing, or to make a change in the day that is less stressful for them. Like if it
Mhm.
is a change to the routine, but then just noticing what's happening in your body a couple of
Mhm.
times a day is really where you start,
Yeah.
is the awareness.
Right. Well, and that's what I was just going to say, what you had mentioned earlier. And it sounds like, this is another way of doing it is really focusing on building that awareness, right? Gaining that awareness. And the way to do that is a way to start doing that is with these somatic check ins.
Yeah, and I would say too that the somatic check-in, a part of what one thing that's really part of that, or what is an important part of that, is to notice and try to not judge yourself.
Hmm.
And we're just noticing. We're not trying
Yeah.
to change anything. We're not trying to do anything with it. We're just noticing what's present,
Hmm.
because really what the body is doing is trying to keep you safe.
Hmm.
And so you might not want to feel stressed. You might not want to feel triggered,
Hmm.
but we have to notice what's happening first to even address it. So getting really comfortable with or not comfortable, but more familiar with the noticing, will be supportive of everything else.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense, and I love that you said that about noticing and not judging. I think that that's a really, really important thing for for moms to hear. So, what do you think is maybe one thing, like what's something that you wish every mom knew about her body and her nervous system?
that your body is trying to keep you safe
Okay.
and that we are socialized, and I think a lot of women especially are conditioned to be in opposition to our bodies,
Mhm.
and that really honoring and the noticing of what the nervous system is doing,
Mhm.
we can say thank you. Thank you for showing me this. I know you're
Mhm.
trying to keep me safe, but I got it.
Mhm.
And so instead of trying to force ourselves to be different or change or something other than what we are, I think
Mhm.
knowing that, what your body is doing what it's meant to do. It's meant to keep you safe.
Mhm.
And um, it's just responding. It's responding to what feels like a threat. Um, and maybe it's not. And maybe it is,
Mhm.
But yeah, that your body is trying to keep you safe.
Well, it sounds like having, that awareness, right? Just what you just said about the body trying to keep you safe, that I imagine helps with the awareness without judgment, right? If you just sort of recognize that this is just what's happening, right? Like that I imagine is really helpful for people who are maybe struggling with that judgment piece.
It's really common. It's so natural, especially if
Yeah.
you wanna be the best mom, you wanna be the best
Yeah.
partner,
Yeah.
and, like, paying attention to your nervous system is really supportive in allowing you to be the mom, to be the person you wanna be in partnership because you have more presence and awareness of your body,
Yeah.
and it's not comfortable for everyone or familiar, and so
Mhm.
that non-judgment is really can be a challenge because
Yeah.
there's, like, some really loud voices in the
Yeah.
world and in our heads.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So this has all been really great. I really appreciate again you sort of taking this time to talk to me today. For people who want to, learn more about you, they want to learn more about the work that you do, and more just about this somatic work, this nervous system regulation. Where can they go to do that? Where can they go to learn more about you and your work?
The best 2 places are gonna be my website,
Hmm.
which is betterhalftowhole.com, and then I do share quite a bit on my Instagram, which is the same Better Half to Whole, and I do talk about love and relationships and connection and a lot about the nervous system, and you don't have to be divorced to work with me. Most of my clients are not. And really the somatic healing and sense of self is universal.
Okay, so thank you. So I will make sure that I include all of that in the show notes, for anybody who is interested in learning more about Madison. So, before we wrap up for today, if you could leave the moms listening with one final piece of advice, one final message, what would it be?
There's nothing wrong with you.
Hmm. I love that. It's like so simple and so powerful, and so true. So wow, thank you. So, all right. Well, again, like this has just really been wonderful. I won't take up any more of your time. Imagine that you are very, very busy. But as always, for the moms who are listening, if any of this resonates, if you found any of these things we talked about today to be helpful, please, feel free to look up Madison, the work that she does. Feel free to, I encourage you to share this podcast with any other moms who you think could use some additional support. Um, because we are all in this together.